The New York State Department of Transportation presents the DOT POD.
And welcome into the DOT POD. I'm Josh Heller.
And I'm Anya Cardos.
And we are delighted to have you joining us. Well, as New York State employees, we intend to serve the public by making our community stronger, and we have pretty high standards for the work that we do, but when you have a problem at work or in life, even the smallest issues can be extremely distracting, whether you're a DOT employee, a state employee, just anybody, really. And so major life events involving whether it's financial, family, legal, medical, all these different problems, they make things difficult and oftentimes downright unbearable. And that's when New York State employees can turn to the Employee Assistance Program, otherwise known as the EAP.
Yeah, that's right, Josh. This is a program that offers confidential assistance connecting workers to services that are going to help them bounce back after a challenge like the ones you were talking about. Joining us to dig into EAP a little bit more is Nancy Nuding, an EAP Coordinator here at NYSDOT's main office in Albany, and Kelsey Russell, Employee Assistance Program Regional Representative for the Capital Region. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for coming, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
So, Nancy, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your role as an EAP coordinator here.
I am able to help others, employees in DOT and their families with situations and things going on in their lives. It could be work, it could be home, it could be even their children are having some struggles and they need some guidance and direction. And we are trained as coordinators to help the employees and their families. I started at DOT a very long time ago, right out of high school. And I remember wanting to go to school, and at the time I knew I had to wait. So I did a typing test in school back then, and they hired me as a secretary, and I loved my job. And I felt so fulfilled in that for so many years, and I worked with some wonderful people. And then about 12 years ago, I started to pay attention to the Employee Assistance Program, and others were telling me that they used it and how it had benefited their lives. So I was walking down the hall one day, and a coordinator walked by me, and it just came out of my mouth. Do you ever need people to help or to work or to volunteer? And he said to me, please give me your resume. So I went home, wrote it up, and it was in 2 days I got a call, and I was given the opportunity, and my supervisors approved it as well because it was a volunteer position within your own job. And I was able to start there. And it's been an amazing journey for me.
Wow. I can sense in you that so many people get a lot of peace from talking with you on the phone. And we're going to dig into that in just a moment. Kelsey, please tell us a little bit about your background and how you came into this line of work.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have my bachelor's in social work, and then I also have my master's in mental health counseling. I actually started with an external EAP program. And then I was working at the university, SUNY Albany, and transitioned into the EAP Regional Rep role. So I have background in mental health. I'm very passionate about helping people. And when I applied for this position, which was a little over 2 years ago now, I looked at this as helping so many people across the board. We provide services to all executive branch New York State employees, and my role within this is to get to work with all these different people, get to see how all of these different agencies work. So for me, it's really just a passion to help people and to get to work with people, hear their stories.
So tell us a little bit more about EAP in general. We've kind of been tangentially talking about it, but tell us a little bit about it, the history behind it, and really what the mission is for them and for you both in the positions you're in.
Sure. So more specifically, when it comes to the mission statement, the mission of the New York State Employee Assistance Program is to assist New York State executive branch employees and their families in resolving work-related and personal problems in a confidential and professional manner in order to promote health and wellness at work and at home, and to assist agencies in maintaining a healthy and productive workplace. So essentially, EAP was created to help balance that work life. We know that, when you're having hard times outside of work, whether it maybe is marital problems or struggling with something, that can really bleed into your everyday life at work. So EAP was created to help balance.
So get into some examples of what this means. Does it mean that I can come to you, like if my mother is struggling with Alzheimer's? Does it mean that if my son is having an issue, I can come to you?
Absolutely. We help in so many different situations. And one thing I like to say when I'm out there training people is EAP is not just for people who are struggling. We absolutely help when, a family member is struggling, or maybe someone needs to find a mental health counselor in the community. But we can also help that first-time home buyer get set up with a first-time home buying program. Or if you're looking to save money, or if you're looking to set aside money for maybe your kid to go to college in the future. We're ultimately just a resource for such a broad range of topics.
I think a lot of people sometimes think of EAP and they think of maybe substance abuse or something like that, because that is something that is has been out there for a while. But this is like daycare for children. If I have
Absolutely.
a gap in that, or if I need full-time assistance for my mom, as I was mentioning with Alzheimer's, those kind of things, those real things.
Mm-hmm.
What else happens that is really good when we have employees that are new and they're coming from other areas and they don't have childcare, they don't have doctors, they're looking to live. Where do I rent? Can you help me with those? Can you refer me in the areas I'm looking in? That is very beneficial too to them. And that's the part that is the joys too of the job, to help families get settled.
I think there's so many things that EAP does that probably a lot of people, myself included, hands up here, don't necessarily know about. Yeah, you think of kind of the bigger ticket items, but those smaller things, which frankly aren't that small, but in the scheme of things, is there a place that that people can go if they're just listening to this, or we'll certainly have it in the descriptions we have and what we put out, where someone can go to see the different things that EAP does provide? If maybe they don't need it today, they don't need it tomorrow, but at least they know that it's a resource that's available and know what is available to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that anyone who is looking for information about EAP, definitely go to our website. It has quite a bit of information on it. It actually lists all of our EAP coordinators across the state. So right now we have about 250 coordinators across the state. So they're listed there with their contact information. We're also a 24/7 service. So a 1-800 number is listed there as well. Some resources are there. So our website is really a great resource if you're just looking to start. Or I would also encourage them to maybe reach out to the coordinator at their office or at their agency.
And what is that website?
So it is oer.ny.gov/EAP.
Is there a number for that too?
The phone number?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, it's 1-800-822-0244.
And that's a 24/7 call-in number.
24/7. That is staffed 24/7 as well. So if you are calling in the middle of the night, something happens, you're just looking for some support, you'll get set up with someone immediately.
And again, that number and that website will be in our show notes as well. So just go to the description. You can find links to those to easily find that. Now, you said one of the other things that you can do is find your coordinator. How would you go about finding who that would be, depending on where you are, and not just for DOT, but for any state employee?
Yeah. How do you find a Nancy?
Yeah. So you can find it on that website. We have a spot that is actually called Find Your Coordinator. You can type in your agency, and then it'll populate all the coordinators across the state from that agency. You can also, hopefully there's some literature somewhere at your agency as well. For example, here, if you look at right in the entrance, there's a couple also flyers and brochures that Nancy has put up that has some of her contact information.
It's very important that people know how to access that, because sometimes when you're working in your agency, you may not want to go to the coordinator that you're working with in that agency. You might even be working next to, and you're looking to step and find somebody that you can connect with, and you can call any coordinator. It doesn't have to be the one in your agency.
So if you don't feel comfortable with that coordinator, you can speak with another coordinator.
And I even tell them that when they call me, to make sure they're okay with that.
And as an EAP coordinator, you're not telling people how to fix their problems. You're basically making connections for them. Can you talk about that?
The referrals. What we do is we sit with the employee or talk to the employee, or they can email us with what's going on, and we tell them exactly that it's confidential. We cannot share with anyone, not their neighbor, not their friend, not their supervisor. Then we talk to them and talk through the situation they're in and ask them, what can we do for you? And then they will share most of the time what's going on. Like we said, it can be simple, it can be difficult, it could be work related, it could be outside. And from that point, we dig in with the training we've been taught and the referrals that we've been given and our other coordinators that we can reach out to for help, and Kelsey. We find the best fit for them with that situation and what they may need. And we always try to give 3 referrals so that they have choices. And then if that doesn't work for them, they don't make a connection with those 3, we always encourage them to come back to us or call another coordinator, and we'll help the best we can.
I want to jump on something you said, and that was training. Obviously, this is something that, you have to have compassion. You have to want to do this. You volunteered to do this. But this wasn't your background. Kelsey, obviously this is your background, but talk about the training that you go through, because, some of these calls or some of these, contacts, they can't be, they're not simple, certainly, and they can't be easy either, especially if you don't know how to deal with certain situations. What kind of training do you guys go through in order to be able to assist with whatever is happening on the other side of that phone call?
I thought a little bit about that this morning, actually. The coordinators across the state that we do training in person with, and we have done WebEx since we've had to do this through COVID. What happens is the other coordinators have, I believe to say this, and I want to be careful, I have not met one yet that doesn't have a heart for people. Every single one that I've met and spent time with and trained with. And from that, the trainings are from all different degrees of information. We can have training on addiction. They have people come in that are trained, that have credentials to teach us and train us and give us information and how to handle situations. And then we have others that come to talk about the simplest things, like where can we go for elder care? Where can we go to help our families? Where can we go to help our children? And they train us in these ways to learn how to talk to others, how to share with others, how to be ourselves, be a person. And this hit me as well today. We're human beings. We all go through the same thing that all these people go through that they call us. And as we're being trained how to help them, we are actually growing in ourselves. I don't have a background in school, but through these trainings, I've been able to sit with people, listen to them, refer them, and care about them. We have to be careful with that. We have to stay neutral at all times. But the trainings have built in each one of us this confidence, and they've been intentional with these trainings to give us what we need to be able to fulfill this job that we're being called to do.
And you mentioned, you want to stay neutral, and certainly that's important. But we all know, again, as you said, the heart for people who do this. This has to be difficult at times. You're dealing with some heavy things at times. This has to be difficult, kind of to step back and try to help as best you can, in whatever that help may be, if you can. That has to be stressful. That's an enormous responsibility.
So you just brought something to my mind through the trainings. There was a training once that was about child abuse in families and how we can handle that and work with those people. And if it's too hard for us when they come in, we need to call our supervisor and get some help or refer them. I remember being in the training, and this training hit a whole bunch of us very hard. And we ended up being able to talk it through, share with each other, and kind of get a commonality and a peace about it so that when people come to us, we're able to share that we understand, not that we tell them about our lives, but we're able to really understand through the trainings.
Is part of that training that neutrality, because everyone has certain thresholds, first of all, and they also bring their personal narrative to the story as well. And as you said, some things hit you, and sometimes I would imagine they hit you a little harder than what you thought or maybe took you by surprise. How do you handle that?
I have had to work on that over the years. I had a supervisor before Kelsey came who talked to me about that a lot because I would get caught up emotionally. But as you do the job and as you grow in that and as you work on that, you do come to a place that you can listen and not take it on or be personally involved. It does take time. I'm not going to say it does for everyone, but it did for me. But now I am able to be understanding with and being neutral.
Right.
I try not to make expressions. I try not to share my personal life at all. I don't. Because it's hard, because you're human.
Right. Because empathy can help, but you're really there in a different capacity.
Yes.
And that's got to be a challenge. And that also comes with the same aspect when it comes to confidentiality as well, because sometimes you cannot maintain that full confidentiality. What are some of the rules when it comes to that?
Well, if I could say this with what you just said too, at the end of the day, you need to walk out the door and leave it at work. And you need to not take it home, and it's not always easy because you can't talk about it with anyone because it is confidential. These are their lives. Mm-hmm. We don't want people to be hurt or distrust EAP. We've been working on that for years to try to get people and employees and families to understand that your life is your business, and we are just here to try to direct and guide and refer.
And what about when it comes to something like self-harm, though, and things like that, when you cannot maintain that confidentiality anymore? That's got to be difficult, but how do you make that call?
So we are a confidential and neutral program. That's super important for us. Our coordinators maintain neutrality across the board. We are also confidential, so we have our confidentiality policy posted in all of our EAP offices, and we give that to every client that walks in the door before we even start our assessment. We do have 3 exceptions to confidentiality. The first one is when information is required to be disclosed by law, executive order, or agency work rule. So the example I like to give is imagine someone who is driving, their position is driving on the road, and they show up to work and are intoxicated, right? That's not just an agency work rule, but that's also a law as well. If anything like that were to ever happen, they would know before that this is something that we could potentially have to break confidentiality for. And that's going to be a discussion we have with them so that they know if we even get close to breaking confidentiality, they're aware of that. So our second exception to confidentiality is when there's reasonable belief a client's conduct places the client or another person in imminent threat of bodily harm. So this would be like active suicidal thoughts or active homicidal thoughts. And then our last exception to confidentiality is when there's reasonable belief to suspect that child abuse has been or will be committed. This includes physical, emotional, and psychological abuse and neglect. Something I really want to emphasize is that if at any point a coordinator gets to a situation where they have to break that confidentiality, The coordinator is going to let the client know. The coordinator is going to work with the client. The coordinator is going to make sure that they're aware that this could potentially happen. So it won't ever come as a surprise to them.
I want to kind of turn in a slightly different direction because I don't know if you guys know this, but a few years ago, something happened and it complicated life, COVID. And that had to really complicate things because now there are, needs and issues and, both real and psychological and mental that we've never really dealt before. And I'm just curious from the ground and also from above, what was that like going through that and kind of learning on the fly? We talked about training. You probably didn't get training for that because no one did. And, not working in an office anymore, dealing with all the extra stresses, that went along with it. I'm just curious how that was and how that still is, a complete kind of game changer for you guys.
Yeah, it definitely shifted a lot of the EAP program. And so a lot of what we would do previous was in person. So we're now doing things in person still, but we also offer virtual help as well. So we'll offer lunch and learns that are virtual. A client can reach out to a coordinator through their email, through phone. They can also reach out to them in person as well, but that has been a big shift. And then training as well for our coordinators. We are just, in the past couple of years getting back to in-person training, but a lot of the training previously was virtual as well. So that has been a big shift, but we've also seen a little bit of a shift in the topics that we're seeing come to EAP. So previously, workplace issues has been top priority or top situation that EAP sees for a really long time. In the past year, we've actually seen, it work closely with, or not closely, but we'll see mental health actually exceed that. It just happened. So we'll see quite a few clients for mental health. That's been a big shift for COVID. A lot of people are really struggling with their mental health post-COVID. So we're working with a lot of clients and finding, mental health providers in the community or just everyday resources that are helping with their mental health.
And one of the things that has helped a lot as a coordinator is having all the other coordinators, because we're all dealing with these situations and being able to help each other with services and referrals and places that we may not think about and they have dealt with already that has worked. Because when COVID started, just like you said, we all were thrown into this, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? And the mental health part was so big then, but because everybody was dealing with that, you couldn't get people. You couldn't get services because they were being maxed out and they were exhausted, the service providers. So now as the years are going on, I think it's year 4, right? It is starting to, at least the service part is starting to lighten up a little, that there's more holes that we can fit people in to be able to get the services that they need.
And it sounds like you as time goes on, you are building this network of supportive systems and options for people who come to EAP. Are there still some barriers or stigmas out there? And how would you like to kind of break through that during a discussion right now, letting people know that if they're maybe on the fence and they've thought about it, but they haven't followed through in contacting EAP or even anyone else who can help them, what would you like to say to them?
One of the things I say to the employees that are even just asking the questions, they're not necessarily wanting the service yet, is that it's hard to ask for help. It's courageous, you're brave, you're worth it, your life is worth it, and especially at work. You want to be able to come to work and feel good and be able to do your job and do it efficiently. And that's part of what I try to encourage people that are on the fence and they're not sure what to do, that this is a benefit to your life to reach out for help.
It can be really, really hard to reach out for help. And, you know, there is still a stigma around mental health. I think it's gotten a little bit better post-COVID, but there is definitely still a stigma. But it's really hard to make that first step. I would just encourage people to, you know, reach out to their coordinators. They're amazing across the board, and they're really there to help you. One thing I will also mention is that we're a peer model. So that means our coordinators come from within the agency. So they're going to know, you know, what that culture is like within the agency. They may have even gone through some of the situations that you have gone through as an employee. So just, you know, encouraging people to reach out. Our coordinators are awesome, and they really are there just to help any way that they can.
OER.ny.gov/EAP is the website to find out any and all information. You can also call 1-800-822-0244. Links will be in the description.
So EAP is a work-life service program through OER. It's funded through the collective bargaining agreements between the state of New York and the public employee unions. The Office of Employee Relations contributes on behalf of management confidential employees.
We wanted to end with a fun 2 questions that we sometimes ask our guests, and that is, what is your favorite DOT road trip and your favorite road trip and song? Nancy?
DOT road trip.
Any road trip. How's that? Make it easy.
No, I love when I get the opportunity to go visit the residencies, so I can't say one. I get to go in the Adirondacks, and it's beautiful up there, and it gives me peace before I do my job.
Oh, nice. What kind of genre of music or a song?
Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Big band. I love big band. I grew up with it, and I just love it.
Oh, are you talking about like Tommy Dorsey kind of stuff?
Count
like
Basie.
And Count Basie?
I'm trying to think of the names right now. Yeah, I loved it.
Oh, wow. Okay. So swing music, basically.
Yes.
Very cool. That's
Thank you.
awesome. Kelsey, what about you?
So I'm going to have the same answer. The Adirondacks is definitely my favorite road trip. Love going to the lakes, Long Lake up there. It's
nice.
amazing. And my go-to is definitely podcasts. I love listening to podcasts on any type of travel I do. Makes the time go by a lot faster.
And I'm sure you're tuning in to the DOT POD.
Absolutely.
I've heard good things about it.
I've heard really
I've heard
good things about that podcast.
Well, thank you both so very much for not only coming down and chatting with us, but for what you do and the services that you provide to the members here at DOT or whatever state agency you might be at. And again, OER.ny.gov/EAP, 1-800-822-0244, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They are there for you. And thank you so much both for being here with us.
Thank you
so
very
much.
much.
Well, Anya, that's about going to do it for us here from the DOT POD. A really interesting one, but also a really good one, and something really great for people to know, be aware of, and not be afraid to use.
Yeah, you know what was so nice about this episode, too, is that Nancy and Kelsey really share how their heart is in this and how much it means to them as much as it probably means to the people who are contacting their EAP coordinators. And that is really special and very important. And if you're just on the fence, call.
Absolutely. And again, the number and the website will be in the description, so feel free to click on that link. So thank you all for tuning in to this episode of the DOT POD. Thanks to all our new listeners as well. You can find us wherever you find your podcast. Send us a follow, give us a like, drop us a note. Podcast at dot.ny.gov. That's our email, podcast at dot.ny.gov. To reach on out to us, let us know what you're interested in hearing about as well. So for Anya, I'm Josh. We'll be right back here on the DOT POD.